As we start this new year, many of us are making New Year's resolutions. In other words, we're setting our intentions for the direction in which we'd like our life to go. I think it's helpful to think of life as something to be tamed, but I also think that the English word tame is setting us up for failure, because life doesn't lend itself readily to having one's will forcefully imposed on it. However, what it does respond to surprisingly well is familiarization. What do I mean by this? Well, the French word used in similar situations is apprivoiser, which means to tame, as in to tame a horse. This word apprivoiser, it's a good example of a French word which commonly translates to a particular English word, to tame, but the English translation isn't exactly equivalent. The reason I say this is that the French word has implications and connotations that are quite different from the implications of the word to tame. Now, to tame something implies that you're imposing your will on it. You're making something else's behavior more docile, easier to control. But the implication in the English is that you're doing this forcefully. The classical image of the lion tamer is of a mustachioed man with a top hat with a whip. In fact, there's a separate word in French for that kind of taming, which is dompter, and that has the same etymological origin as the word to dominate. The idea of taming something is quite a martial concept, a forceful concept. The French term apprivoiser is far more venereal, of the realm of Venus, relationships. It implies that something is made familiar, trusting, and in return trusted. The implied process is very different. One implies forceful subjugation, and then the other implies a process of pace and lead. Now, this pace and lead is actually an NLP concept. The idea is that in order to get someone to the state of mind that you're hoping to bring them to, or at least to get them to understand your point of view, one of the most powerful things that you can do is to first spend some time falling into step with their own pace, their own way of being, adapting your own way to match their attitude, their own state of mind, at first at least. And it can take quite a long time because the process has to be very subtle. If the other person notices you imitating them in any way, that's a really weird situation. Nobody wants to be imitated. That's what children do to make fun of each other. The most likely outcome of that is that they'll take offense, and then the barrier between the two of you will be reinforced rather than broken down. However, by little steps, small, almost imperceptible changes in your own way of being, maybe introducing some of the other person's words into your speech, mirroring, or being careful not to imitate the other person's way of sitting. Tiny adjustments like your breathing to match the other person's breathing, leaning in when the other person leans in, spotting how much eye contact the other person is providing and matching that yourself, adjusting your voice volume and tone, these kinds of things. And then after a while, subconsciously, the other person will start to feel more in tune with you. At that point, you can start taking the lead and gradually changing one thing and watching the other person change in response, because they trust you at this point, subconsciously. Not consciously, but subconsciously. Their unconscious mind is saying to them, this other person is like me. So the simplified unconscious message that's really happening here is, I see that you and I are the same thing, because when I do something, you do it too. So when you do something, I will also do it. Not consciously, but unconsciously. This is a very powerful technique, and like every powerful tool, it can be used for good and for bad. It's used by salespeople, of course, and con artists, but it's also a technique that's used by social workers, teachers, psychologists, all for very different purposes. The point is that it works, and here we come to the central premise of this video. This pace and lead technique is also applicable to life. This might be an unintuitive statement, but ultimately all the magic techniques use it, low and high. The concept of sympathy magic is one that many readers of fantasy fiction will be familiar with. Patrick Rothfuss describes it exceedingly well in his book, The Name of the Wind. Now, for those of you who aren't fantasy readers, you'll probably be familiar with the concept of a voodoo doll. So that's a doll that's created to imitate a real-world person, is given lots of attributes to be as similar to this other person as is physically possible. Hair from this other person is traditionally used to even include DNA of this other person. And the result is that, in theory, whatever experience is inflicted on the doll, the person will experience also. You could say that there's an entanglement between the two. Or maybe even more accurately, you could say that there's a resonance. Both parties are then on the same wavelength, as it were. So in general, the method is that we first agree to take on the resonance of the thing that we want to affect. And then once there's unison between the two of us, then we can take the lead. However, if you take the lead too forcefully, too violently, then effectively what happens is that you rupture that resonance, you rupture that link. And so instead of coaxing the other thing in the direction that you were hoping to go, you lose their trust, you lose their confidence. And this may be a literal loss of trust, if you're talking about an actual conscious being, as a person or an animal, or in the case of life, it can be a metaphorical loss of trust, as in simply a loss of connection, and then by extension, a loss of control. I like to think of life as a horse, and of my own control over my life as a very fragile set of reins made of many thin strands of silk, as thin and as delicate as a spider's web. Every time I conform to life's direction, in other words, I express gratitude for the direction in which life has naturally taken me, and I ask for more rather than express dissatisfaction and ask for change, I create a new, fine, delicate spiderweb link between myself and the metaphorical horse, which is life. Naturally, it takes many of these links to be able to start suggesting direction to life. And if I pull too hard on the reins, then the links are severed, and I have to start the whole process again. But wait, I hear you say, life takes me in very negative directions. I don't want to express gratitude and ask for more. I must say that I never ask for more of what I don't want. I never express gratitude for what I don't want. But among all the negatives, there are always positives that get overlooked. When we're feeling crummy about a situation on a day where everything seems to be going wrong, we forget to be grateful for the hot water coming out of the tap. We can always be grateful for the light turning on when we flick a switch. If the light bulb breaks, then, well, that's not the thing to focus on. The thing to focus on is the fact that we have a handy dustpan and brush to sweep it all up with. It sometimes requires an immense amount of effort, of imagination and of self-control to find things to be grateful for when our state of mind is one of lack. However, if we want reins with which to direct life, regularly cultivating a conscious state of gratitude does seem to be a prerequisite process. So here's a tip that I picked up somewhere along the line, which I use when I find that I'm being particularly negative and when life is getting me down more than usual. I get a pack of stickers, little tiny stickers. If I happen to have some available cash, I'll buy some pretty stickers, but if not, just a white label cut up, it does just fine. Now I place these small stickers in places that I know I will see, maybe once, maybe twice in my day. So inside a drawer, on the door handle in the bathroom, on the bread knife, on the remote control, those kinds of places that you know that you're going to see once or twice every day. And whenever I see one of these stickers, I have to make a conscious effort to think of something to be grateful for. Now, once I've thought of something, I'm not allowed to use that same thing to be grateful for again. I always have to think of something new to be grateful for. Invariably, within 2 or 3 days of doing this, I'm back to thinking positively. Life is going my way once again. I no longer need to force the gratitude because I'm so surrounded with things to be grateful for that gratitude just comes naturally. I can get back to the business of creating those delicate silk thread reins with which I can regain control over my life. So those are my thoughts for today. I hope some of you found it useful. Thank you as always for sharing your time with me. If you feel that the video deserves an extra click of your mouse as a pat on the head or something, I hope you'll consider clicking on the like button and even subscribing if you'd like more like this. These Esoteric Saturday videos will happen every 2 weeks now, and members get to see them a week in advance with no advertisements during that week. Members also get to join the Discord chat server, where we discuss all kinds of esoteric topics, day and night. Speaking of members, I'd like to extend my thanks to all of you who support this channel, and in particular, I'd like to thank the level 3 members, the Magister Venerabilis members, being Thomas Beauvais, Thea Beauvais, Ricardo Colomé, Nia the Arianach, Justin Lloyd, Raoul Nair, King Rainbow, Eleonora F., Jorge Salas, Luis Adolfo Mancilla Marquina, Oscolith Intin, Ian Smith, Osvaldo Gonzalez Nunez, Fernando Martin del Campo, Robert Mahoney, Alvin A., Jason, Frater VPF, Aristarchus, Byron Marmol, W.A., D. Lane, A Million Ways to Wipe, Alexander Carval, Sheridan, Brandon Wilkinson, Andrew Kudlak, Mateusz Sadowski, Chase Lawrence, Mrs. C.Y., Medusa of Chaos, Hilbert Space, Seydr, Matu, Stev Berner, Arcanum Luminarium, Mystic Imagination, Merrily Duffy, Meta Gordy, Oblivion Knight, Damnatio Memoriae, Suncat, Ted Kaiser, Sean Glenn, J. Joseph Safi, Kyle Walker, Roluch Ashron, Charbon, Patrick, Arcantum by Mr. Fribourg, Mr. Gunwich, The Jade Ghost, Miles Ponce, Timothy Owens, SMQAI, and Z. Danielle Barnett. Thanks ever so much for watching, and see you very soon.